Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you for watching. Much appreciated. So, in this video, I would like to talk about fandom and my relationship with it. My relationship with the fandom has really become negative and I would say outright adversarial. So, some of you watching this video might ask yourself, what is fandom? So, I just decided to look it up on this website, just to clarify. So it says that fandom refers to the fans of a sports team, particular television show, comic book, anime, or a certain person. These fans are regarded collectively as a subculture or community. In simpler terms, fandom is essentially a way of saying fan culture. Many members of these fandoms frequently attend fan conventions and publish their own fan fictions or fanzines. Though most of the original media was print-based, most has shifted to a digital platform. I don't really like to use the term fandom. Matter of fact, the fact that I'm using the term fandom in this video shows that like my negative relationship. I say fandom because I just want to refer to these collective of people in a way that I don't particularly like. Because what first started off as, simple creative differences about the fictional material, like the writing and the art, has really escalated into an ideological conflict where you have people on the political left, on the political right, using the medium of comic books and the medium that feature the comic book characters, the movies and the television shows, as a way to show off their ideology, which has really ruined the quality and much of the timeless appeal of the characters in the material. It has turned into a full-on cultural war, and I really feel like that this has had a negative impact on the Marvel and DC brand. You know, in the thumbnail of this video, I show myself in a martial arts gi. I do practice martial arts, Muay Thai, and Aikido, but I'm not actually talking about physical combat when I say me versus the fandom. I just wanted to symbolically represent that I am against much of the fandom. So I would want to take you back to the 90s. I was born in 1994. The 90s is the decade where I first saw these Marvel and DC characters on television. I first saw like Spider-Man, a Spider-Man animated series, which I consider the best Spider-Man animated series, and Rogue, an X-Men animated series, which I consider the best X-Men animated series, and the Incredible Hulk animated series, which I thought was really good. I saw these characters. I thought they were amazing. I loved their abilities. I loved their struggle. I liked their personalities and their dedication to fighting evil. And ever since then, I have been a massive fan. Like, these characters inspire me to do better and be better and have been essential to my identity. So when I got older, after more years of watching the live action movies and more cartoons, around my preteen years, I started to read the comics and I discovered that basically my favorite version of like the DC characters are the Golden Age versions, which a lot of people who are fans don't seem to care for. Like, I love the Golden Age Superman. He's a lot different from Superman as we know him now. He couldn't really fly. He didn't have heat vision or ice breath, and he was a lot less. I mean, yeah, he was a lot weaker, and plus, you didn't really have super villains back in the Golden Age, so he would like fight corrupt authority figures, or he might fight like some mafia types and normal human criminals, or maybe an occasional mad scientist every now and then. But this is my favorite version of the character because I really feel like that he was a champion of the weak and the oppressed. A lot of people like the John Byrne run, which I really don't like. I don't think John Byrne's art or writing is that good. Or I do like that Marvel team up issue he made where the Spider-Man teams up with the Human Torch. But John Byrne made Superman kill, which was really something out of character. John Byrne, he's really considered by people a jerk, even though a lot of people like his art. I'm not a fan of John Byrne's art. I prefer the Golden Age version of the Superman. So with Batman, my favorite version of Batman is the Golden Age Batman. He used to kill back then, and he wasn't, like, he didn't really show as much restraint as fighting villains as we now know him. He didn't really have the no kill rule. A lot of people hold up The Dark Knight Returns as just this amazing, awesome Batman work. I feel like that it really messes up and misunderstands the character and that it gets a lot wrong. So that's something I don't have in common with a lot of the fans. I feel like that the original version of these characters are the best. And plus, in this modern day, you have people that, oh, Batman, because he's a rich white man, he's bad, and his parents were rich. A lot of just class based ideology, which has nothing to do with the Batman character and doesn't even really make any sense. So I just disagree with the fandom on different aspects of the character, whether it's from a creative standpoint or ideological standpoint. My favorite version is the Flash, the Golden Age Jay Garrick. A lot of people like the Wally West version. I'm not a fan of that version, even though for me, that was the first version I recall seeing. The Justice League and the Flash on the Justice League cartoon is Wally West, but I mean, I think he's an interesting character and all, but I really like Jay Garrick, the Golden Age version, better. He was funnier, he was a lot more dynamic, and I just feel like overall, his leadership position on the Justice Society makes him a more interesting character than Wally West and all the other Flashes that came after him. This is the original Flash, and I think this is the best. Now, Green Lantern, this is a really, really interesting one because this version, Alan Scott, who is the Golden Age Green Lantern, the original, the way he has been depicted in the modern era really exemplifies my problem with a lot of leftists and the way they choose to depict comic characters because I think Alan Scott is a really good character. His ring is magical. He is not a part of the Green Lantern Corps, which was created by the Guardians of Oa. He didn't really, fight super villains like that. He would often fight a lot of human villains with his partner, Doiby Dickles. He would fight physically. And I feel like that he was a lot more exciting and dynamic. And I really like his comics. And I think that he is a better character than Hal Jordan, Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, John Stewart, and any of the other versions of the Green Lantern Corps. I'll get more on that later about how I feel a lot of leftists have ruined the character. And I just want to go with a Marvel example. My favorite version of Iron Man is the one drawn by George Tuska. A lot of people like the David Michelini version. I don't. I feel like that version is kind of grounded and dull. And I just feel like that it just took away a lot of fantastical elements and that it was just a less interesting read. So, regarding the 90s, going back for a second, as a preteen in the late 2000s, I started to read a lot of the 90s comics. And I'm not really a fan of a lot of them because this was a time where Marvel and DC were not really doing good financially. In fact, they were pretty close to going under. Like, I didn't like the death of Superman. I didn't like the art. I felt like that it was just a cheap gimmick. Then you had Nightfall, which was a part of Chuck Dixon's run on Batman. I don't like how they had Batman's back being broken and it was how it was so devastating. Because I feel like if it was so devastating that he never should have recovered. But people really love this run and Chuck Dixon's run, and I don't. I just disagree on these certain creative aspects of the character. And Then there's Green Lantern Emerald Twilight, where Hal Jordan becomes deranged and he nearly destroys the Green Lantern Corps and he gets replaced by Kyle Rayner. I didn't really care for that. I felt like that was really destructive towards the character of Hal Jordan. And I just feel like that if they wanted to shake things up, they could have did better. And then you had the Clone Saga with Spider-Man in the 90s, which became a really convoluted mess. And then later in the 2000s, you had Civil War, which again has ideology about it. You had the pro-registration and the anti-registration. And I feel like that this was really damaging towards the characters. I feel like that this undermines the heroic nature of the characters. It really made them become these morally gray figures, which is not the case because even though Marvel heroes are darker, they are still very much moralistic individuals that try to show integrity and be a good person. Then you had World War Hulk, which followed up on the events of Civil War and Planet Hulk. And you had the Hulk, going on a rampage because there was an explosion from a device that Tony Stark created. And the Hulk thought it was because of Tony Stark. And the Hulk went back to Earth and he fought against a lot of the Earth's heroes. And it made the Hulk's rampage seem justified because of some of the events of Civil War. And I really like the action and the art in this storyline. But again, I feel like it made the heroes seem like morally gray individuals, which I feel like is really bad for the brand. Then you had Spider-Man Back in Black, which shows a darker version of Spider-Man, which really undermines his morality about great power and great responsibility. I thought that this was a really detrimental and deleterious take on the character. Then you had One More Day, which was hated by the fans because Spider-Man made a deal with Mephisto, who was a devil-like figure, to give up his marriage just to save Aunt May after he revealed his identity in Civil War. I feel like that this was really bad and messed up the character. Then you had Identity Crisis in Justice League, which was really bad. You had members of the Justice League brainwashing a villain, and it set off all of these events that would put the heroes at odds with each other, and it made the Justice League look like a really questionable organization. And again, it really delved into the whole morally gray area. So I just feel like that in certain aspects of, the early 2000s and even going back into the 90s, the characters were being undermined on a level that, really destroyed their characterization. And I feel like that as time moves forward, that this trend of undermining the characters really continues, but it becomes more ideological based on the writers, how they feel and their personal interpretation of the character, and ignoring the true iconic characterizations of the character. Now, this right here is the New 52 in DC Comics. To me, this was a really bad turning point, and I feel like that DC Comics has not recovered ever since then. I feel like that this was a point of no return. You had them messing up Superman's character, turning him into a rash, impetuous jerk. And you had the universe overall becoming more darker like Batman because Batman is their highest selling character and arguably the most popular character in all of comics. But what I really want to go on is going back to the Alan Scott Green Lantern. They created a new version of the Alan Scott Green Lantern, who for some reason they decided to turn into a homosexual, which really confuses me because Alan Scott is not a homosexual. He is a straight man, and I feel like that this is part of a leftist agenda in which they want to take certain characters and change them in a way that fits, a left-leaning agenda. Again, Alan Scott, he was in a relationship with a woman named Molly Main, whose supervillain identity was Harley Quinn. They were in a relationship together. Alan Scott is not a gay character. He is a straight man. And then he had kids with another female character who was a villain named I think Rose, yeah, I believe, yeah, Rose Canton, and he had a son and a daughter with her, and his son right here, Obsidian, the character in blue, he was gay, cause I'm like, I have no problems with LGBT characters, but if you want to do that, make an original gay character. So they gave Alan Scott a gay son, and then they later turned Alan Scott gay. That doesn't even make any sense. I found this really frustrating that they would do this to my favorite version of Green Lantern. And then later in the 2010s, you had them introduce Miles Morales, who I think is a really bad character. I cannot stand Miles Morales. I think he sucks and he is a bad character. They wanted to be more diverse, so they decided to introduce a Spider-Man that was of black descent. But the problem with the character is he has no depth. He doesn't have really any iconic storylines, any iconic moments. He's just, ooh, let's just take Spider-Man and make a version of him that is of black descent. And I find this character really unappealing and I don't feel represented. They say, oh, they want to see themselves, kids see themselves as Spider-Man, but I'm like, kids have been seeing themselves in the original Peter Parker Spider-Man ever since the character first appeared. Peter Parker as Spider-Man has universal appeal and he is iconic because he struggles with great power and great responsibility and he had to become the man of the house as a teenager. And plus, he just deals with a lot of life issues. He was an outcast in high school. As somebody who was an outcast, I can relate to Peter. And someone who struggles with life stuff in general, I can relate to Peter. Miles has no depth to him. They can't even decide what to do with Miles's character. They keep giving him new powers like golden webs and an energy sword. Then they kill his mother. Then his mother's back to life. The character of Miles Morales, he was not created with any real vision or any real substance. All he is just a diversity race swap version. And then it gets even more absurd because they did a comic where they would take Miles Morales and turn him into all these different versions of Marvel characters. Like, what if Miles Morales became Thor? Then you have Miles Morales embodying stereotypes, talking about by Odin's fade, because a fade is a popular hairstyle in the black community, and I'm like, whoa, like, why are you, exemplifying these black stereotypes? You want to talk about diversity and representation? That is not a proper way to represent a community by embodying and exemplifying a bunch of stereotypes. And then look at this. You have this version of Asgard. They got graffiti on it. You have sneakers hanging up on the street wires, which is something often associated with a lot of black neighborhoods. Again, embodying and exemplifying stereotypes. This is not real diversity. This is not real representation. This was just an empty gesture that honestly showed how they really feel about, the people that claim to represent like so-called black people, that they don't really think highly of you and that this is really just an empty gesture and they don't really care. Then you got Ironheart, who is just a race swap version of Iron Man, who has no real depth, no real good characterization. I read her material, some of her comic books, not good. Then you got a race swap version of Sam Wilson as Captain America. Again, no real depth. It's just, ooh, look how diverse we are. We have black versions of Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Captain America. No real depth. Falcon was his own character. He didn't need to replace Steve Rogers as Captain America. Then you have, characters like Blue Marvel, who is original. I feel like they should try to put more effort into promoting Blue Marvel. It's like, why don't you promote your original characters instead of making these race swap diversity versions? Blue Marvel, he's a very powerful character and he's really interesting, but he doesn't really have a lot of comic material. And I just feel like that it would be more beneficial for representation and diversity if they promoted him more instead of race swapping. Then you have Night Thrasher, another black character who they don't really promote, but they claim to be about diversity. But it's like, why are you not promoting the black characters that already exist? Then there's Misty Knight, a female hero who they again not really promoting, but instead they're giving us these race swap versions, created by people who apparently are on the political left, but they don't actually seem to care. They just want to check a box and make a bunch of empty gestures. And then this, in my opinion, is the culmination of it all. You have a white version of Black Panther. Seriously, people used to joke about this, about the whole diversity thing and how they would they should make how it's okay to replace white characters with black characters. They like, what if they replace a Black Panther and made him white? Well, there you have it, a white version of Black Panther. And honestly, I feel like that this was the logical conclusion of all of this. Like, you really think they were just gonna give you these black versions of white characters and not do a reversal on you and make a white Black Panther? I knew this was coming. I knew it. I'm telling you. Like, it's just so absurd with all of this stuff. Talk about diversity and representation, and look, now they're turning Black Panther white. Like, it's it is just so ridiculous. It just has me really done with comics, cuz I'm like, it's not even really about the good writing and the good art and the quality material. It's just about ideology now, and I can't stand it anymore. I'm starting to really be done with comics. I'm kind of done. I'ma just, I might order a few more old comics and just leave comics behind altogether. So then you have another original black character, Static, who had an animated series which I used to watch as a kid. I really like Static. I think he is a good original black character, and I found him inspiring. And as popular as the animated series was, it got canceled. And here's Phil Lamar, who voiced the character of Virgil Hawkins, aka Static Shock, speaking on it.
Well, if it's a cartoon, we got to get a toy. So they went to the toy company and brought the character designs and the premise and everything. And the toy company said, nah, we don't really see a market for a character like that.
That is the most consistent.
There's something I would say right about now, but I can't say it because we got company.
Right.
That is
But we all know exactly what they meant.
Yeah.
And that was part of the reason.
I ain't part of the view. I'll say it. I ain't part of the view. I'll say it.
Yeah. Look, Nick, you know I don't care.
But that decision to not have merch was one of the reasons that after 4 seasons of being the top-rated show on that, on its Saturday, morning network, thing, Static Shock got canceled because it wasn't making them no extra money. Now, and so we were the top-rated show and had won a Humanitas Award for that episode about the kid in the high school with the gun.
Yes, I remember
this was
that.
high quality stuff, but like I said back then, they didn't care about quality in cartoons. It was just about Toys R Us.
Yeah, Chad didn't care,
See, again, this was like he said, this was an original black character on a very popular show with really good ratings, but they were like, no, they couldn't make money off of a toy deal because they felt like it wouldn't appeal. Because honestly, yeah, it's a black character, and you still have this attitude and mentality among many, non-black people in the entertainment industry that feel like black characters won't sell. So it's just, all this diversity stuff is really empty because they really won't let in original black characters to come in and succeed. Because again, they think that it won't really be appealing. And it's just like, it's absurd. And now I want to go on. All right, I've gone on about the leftists long enough. Now I want to go on to the people about the political right. You have people like me who were against the leftist agenda in the comics, and you had left leaning individuals call them racist and bigots, and I defended those people, who were against, the forced diversity and representation because they shared some of the same views as me. But it turns out maybe the leftists had a point. Maybe these people really are racist. You look at Neurotic, who is in the comic, he is in the like comic books and pop culture stuff, making these stereotypical thumbnail about the Blue Beetle character. He's Hispanic. And you look at the title of the video, Let's Taco, about Blue Beetle, which is really stereotypical because, Blue Beetle's Hispanic, and just because he's Hispanic, oh, it has to, let's include tacos because he's Hispanic, going on stereotypes. So I'm like, maybe these leftists had a point when they said that some of the people who were against, mainly they were talking about white men, some of the white fans who were against this representation and diversity racist. And then there's a man, his name is RJ. He has a YouTube channel called The Fourth Age, and he was also against, a lot of the diversity and representation. And I thought it was because he just wanted quality material and good original characters of color, but apparently not, because this man made a video supporting Nick Fuentes, who was an open racist. He was propping up Nick Fuentes, and I asked RJ about this. I'm like, RJ, do you really support Nick Fuentes? And this is RJ's answer.
I'm really a supporter of Nick Fuentes. I really don't know who Nick Fuentes is to the extent that
he's lying, but I'm gonna let him continue
what he believes. I just did the video on him because he's in the news, and a lot of people are making a hoopla about who he is and what he's said in the past. And he's just, I couldn't say one way or the other.
RJ, you are a smart guy. You do a lot of research. You listen to people and their ideologies, just like how you said you would go to the Marvel podcast and you would listen to the leftist talk. And then the fact that you said they're attacking Nick Fuentes about things he said, not only in the past, he still says racist things. You know how Nick Fuentes is. You know that he is an open racist. But yet you're pretending, oh, I don't really know who he is. They're just saying some things he said. He said some racist and bigoted statements, and you're okay with it, RJ. I unsubscribe from you because, I can't be associated with somebody that's defending a racist. And just in case you want to know the type of things Nick Fuentes used to say and still say, here's a clip.
Might be. But a lot of white people are looking at this and saying, the public outbursts, the scenes they create, the crime, the violence, the disrespect, and then you talk about it, and then they browbeat you. They want to lynch you for being racist. Someone says the N-word, it's an international incident. And so people are saying, you know what? Okay, bye. I want to go and live with only white people then. Because when we encounter them in traffic, it's chaos. When we encounter them in Walmart, it's chaos. When they're shoplifting and on public transit, it's chaos. When you call them on it, they are yelling in your face. You're being called names. They want to hurt you. You would say that to my face. Why? Because you're a tough guy? Why? Because you're on welfare and you have nothing left to lose. You're not worried about an assault charge because you're a fucking loser with no life, or because you know that there's going to be no social repercussions or legal repercussions for you. You know what? You're right. I don't want to see your face. I don't want to say anything to your face. I want to get as far the fuck away from you as possible. Because I don't want to live around violent maniacs. I don't want to live around cry-bully, fucking baby, narcissist maniacs. I don't want to live there. I don't want to raise a family there. I don't want to hear the excuses. I don't want to hear how I'm a racist. I don't want to hear how you need my fucking money, how I need to pay reparations. You know what? Good luck and good riddance. That's the attitude.
And believe me, like
Yes, this is who RJ propped up as someone who's going to become a cultural leader in America. RJ, you know what Nick Fuentes is about. Stop lying, man. You defended this racist, bigoted individual, and I am not going to associate with you any longer. Goodbye, RJ. And a little more on, and a little, yeah, and then, all right, excuse me, the reason I'm sputtering is because I was going to release this video yesterday, but I got delayed until today, and I watched another stream about RJ, and his friend on the right's name is John, and he's even more racist than RJ, and it really reinforced my decision to stop watching RJ. All right, so I asked, so John defended the creator of Dilbert, who was a racist, and here's his response.
What are we talking about? Is this racism observation? Okay, there you go. I just said racism doesn't exist. It's called pattern recognition, Elijah. I thought you were done with this anyway. I hear
Yeah, because earlier in that stream, I told RJ that this is goodbye. I can't associate with anybody that defends Nick Fuentes. But I decided to not really leave the stream yet because I feel like that there was something more I had to hear. So I stuck around, and this is what I'm hearing. If you want to watch the stream, you should go in at about 1 hour and 49 minutes. John says some really foolish, bigoted statements. Talk about there is no racism. There's only pattern recognition. There is no sexism. There's only pattern recognition. RJ and John are a bunch of bigots, and I stopped associating with them. I can't be around some people like that. And then here's another personal example. I was in a Discord server. I was having a conversation with some man. He put some content of a Supergirl's breast being exposed, and I compared it to something called hentai, which is a Japanese word for drawn or animated adult material. All right, so I can't really show the whole picture because it's exposed breasts, and y'all know how YouTube is. So I told him I can one-up you, and I put up a picture of Supergirl being engaged in sexual acts, which got deleted. And then in my defense, I was provoked. Also, this picture counts as hentai. He says she's not Japanese. And I say again, hentai does not have to be Japanese. It can include non-Japanese or Western works. If you type in Supergirl hentai, you will see images like the one I posted that got deleted. He says, I don't know, man. I disagree. I don't see many Mexicans hanging around Italy calling cows on tacos. I think it's stupid. I think it's just stupid Americans that fantasize a simp for Japanese culture, that forget those Asian F words, bomb Pearl Harbor, and our third world uneducated tribalistic suicidal freaks. One step up from living in a teepee, honestly. And I say, wow, that was incredibly racist. And he says, it's not racist to repeat what actually happened. And the crazy part is he was talking about this comic he once made based off Power Rangers, which came from Japan, from a Japanese series called Super Sentai. So here you have this man who has a series based off of a series that came from Asia, talking about, saying really negative, racist things about Japanese people. So the conversation goes on, and Mike says it's not racist to repeat what actually happened, and also not racist to state current facts. Have you ever been to anywhere in Asia? I've seen how they live right now. Most live in little lean to mean metal shanties. Get a passport and go learn. It's nothing to fantasize about, I promise. And then I say, I interact with Filipino frequently. They are helping grow my YouTube channel. Yeah, some of the parts the Philippines are not so nice, but that's even given country anywhere. Yeah, Filipino people, you know I love y'all. And y'all got some really nice cities and stuff. Matter of fact, it's so nice that you have people in America and all over the world coming to visit. And he says, interact with is not going to. And then I say, America can't exactly talk with the crumbling infrastructure and bad economy. People pooping on the street in California. And that's pretty much where the conversation ends, you know. And then I just say that there's, some nice places in Asia, but yeah, that was really racist. Like in this fandom, you have people with their political ideologies that are left leaning, and then you got some really racist comic book fans. Like I'm telling you, these racists have been showing their behinds. And just to sum it up, between the left leaning ideologies and the racist on the right, I'm just done with this comic book fandom. It has become infested with people in their political ideologies. But what I will say is that Tristan from Nerdette's Nude Stand, you were right about RJ. I remember that me and you had a debate on your channel, and I defended RJ, but you were right. You said he was incel bait, which on that stream I just showed you with John's long box right here from last night. I told him that. I was like, Nerdette was right about you. You are incel bait. So I just wanted to say that I mean, Nerdette, she's left leaning, and I still don't, agree with a lot of her, leftist sentiments, but she has a point about these people on the in the fandom, about some of these white men that are against diversity and inclusion being racist. So I'll give you that, Nerdette. You had a point. Anyway, that's all I got for this video. Thank you all for watching. I know it's been a while since I posted a gameplay video, but my next video will be a gameplay video. Thank you very much for watching.